So we all know that global climate change is, in a word, bad. It's not always explained why, but whenever you hear about it on the news or the internet, everyone always acts like the sky is falling. Ironically enough, there would be a few positive outcomes from global warming, like a northern passage for shipping and a longer growing season, but the effects would be predominantly negative, and besides some vague phrases about more extreme weather, we rarely hear anything concrete about why global climate change could affect our daily lives. So let's take a look at an example that could have some pretty devastating consequences. Imagine for a moment that the Earth truly has warmed, and now we're all sweating it out at, on average, 1 or 2 degrees warmer. You may be sitting there thinking that this isn't so bad, but many of the real threats from global warming don't come from the fact that it extends the summer fashion season, but rather from secondary effects, like the fact that the ocean would get warmer as well. On that topic, let's say that the oceans did get a bit warmer, say, again, by 1 or 2 degrees on average. Among the negative effects that this small change to the Earth system could have is the effect it could have on hurricanes. Namely, that hurricanes striking the American coast could become more costly and damaging than they already are. Why is this, you ask? To answer that, let's first give a quick rundown of how a hurricane works exactly. Essentially, hurricanes begin their lives over the Atlantic Ocean as the remnants of rain systems coming off of Africa, or as clusters of thunderstorms in the Caribbean Sea. These systems move into warm ocean waters and begin to take in energy and moisture. We can imagine that these systems then act like a big mechanism which converts the heat energy and moisture into wind and rain respectively. This energy and moisture continues to increase in the system until it is a massive storm with gale-force winds and torrential rains. As a rule of thumb, warmer waters tend to be more favorable to hurricane development, as they provide more moisture for rain and more energy for winds. This is also one of the many reasons why we see hurricanes develop where they do. Now let's go back to our example where we warmed the oceans a bit. In this scenario, we can imagine that hurricanes would sit over slightly warmer waters than they do right now. As a result, they would have access to even more of the energy and moisture that they need to produce wind and rain than they do now. So in theory, hurricanes would intensify faster and be stronger in general when they make landfall. Of course, all that sounds great in theory, but it's only a theory, right? Well, funny you should ask. As it would turn out, our oceans have warmed, albeit not as much as in our example, but as a result, hurricanes have been intensifying faster than ever before. Imagine, for a moment, two hurricanes forming under similar circumstances, one in the 1960s and one today. By the time the modern hurricane made landfall, the one from the 1960s would be so much weaker by comparison that it would have to spend another whole day out at sea just to catch up to its modern counterpart. What that means for us, though, is that we are seeing stronger hurricanes than ever before, and that trend only threatens to continue. But hey, you might say, so what if a hurricane is a little bit stronger than it might have been? It's still a hurricane. What's a few meters per second of wind speed between friends? Well, it could be millions of dollars, which, unless you're Bill Gates, isn't exactly an amount you'd just give away, now is it? Studies have shown that there is a direct relationship between wind speeds in a hurricane and the cost of the damage it does. Wind speeds in a hurricane are, generally speaking, a good proxy of how dangerous a storm is overall, which is why we use them to label a hurricane as Category 1 or 5 or somewhere in between. Ultimately, for each meter per second faster that the wind speeds in a hurricane blow, the total cost of the damage increases by 5%. Sure, 5% isn't a huge percentage, but it's important to remember here that the cost of many modern hurricanes ranges from several hundred million to a few billion dollars. So like we were saying a second ago, not exactly chump change. So yes, like we said at the beginning, this is bad. But if we can get on top of it, we can keep the damage to a minimum and hopefully restore our vintage, not quite so destructive hurricanes from the past. For more information on climate change and how they affect hurricanes, search the first 3 links in the following resources.